Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 126. This is our year in review and our first annual Zenmy Awards. From Zenatta Consulting, I am Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
Man, oh man, don't know how long it's going to take us to go through this. So Tyler and I went back and basically went through every single CRM Zen show for the entire year. And we started in January and kind of plugged on through. And what we did is we pulled through the show notes and we pulled out the things that we thought were kind of the highlights that happened with Zoho as we went throughout the year. So January, we saw four things. Zoho Analytics added a new role called Organization Administrators. And man, this was a big one for you, Tyler.
Yeah, I mean, they basically just allowed you to set up a specific role where it wasn't dependent on one Zoho Analytics workspace. It was basically another owner for the application, minus just a handful of super admin settings. It just made life a lot easier when you have, a couple different people in leadership roles that want to be able to, work within Zoho Analytics.
Yeah, it was a good thing. And then Zoho Backstage, which had a lot of great improvements kind of that went throughout the year. They had a brand new badge creator called Badge Up. Now, this came out in January, so they got it out in time when people were actually going to physical conferences. But it's kind of nice. You put your logo in and, you had all your attendees already register and they were in there. And it basically super nice for going ahead and printing all the badges. I imagine Zoho would have showed that off at their Zoholics conference, but that didn't happen. And then Catalyst Connect launched their Zoho Client Portal plugin for WordPress. This is a cool little plugin that goes into WordPress, and it basically allows you to give yourself a client portal where you can pull in from CRM, you can pull in from books, you can pull in from subscriptions and projects and desk. Super nice. And that really kind of developed throughout the year. And then I think we had kind of something we didn't realize what it was going to turn into, Tyler, but big and launched.
Yeah, and this was one that, they kind of soft launched it in January, and you'll see a sprinkling of news around this, throughout the rest of this show. It's basically their attempt to make a more lightweight and streamlined CRM. Over time, it became more and more functional, right? With a bunch of the integrations that they've added and kind of the tools that are in the box there. But this was kind of the first little inkling of this, which has probably become one of the apps we've talked about the most this year, just because it's been such a torrent of uploads or updates to it.
Yeah, it's well, we'll get through it as we go through the year, but this application became quite interesting as the year rolled on. And that brought us on to February. A few small things in February. So we got our first new product, and this was Zoho Bookings. This had actually been in beta for quite a while in last year. I think we had a pretty good look at it at the developers conference in October of last year. And this launched, and it's still getting there. It's getting close. We don't kind of say it's ready for prime time. They have made some improvements to it. And we're hoping, I hope 2021 is the year of Zoho Bookings where they kind of get it together, because it's a really decent app. Just got a few little minor things going on with it, adding things to a calendar and some other things. But I've got high hopes for this application.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually got some functionality that's missing from some of the different applications like Calendly. Like some of the group bookings you can do is super intuitive. And, the way that you can build out schedules, it's just that last little bits of functionality that are missing. But yeah, I mean, for us, we use Calendly, but we'd love to switch and are hoping to do that next year.
Yeah. And then February, we saw our first little update for Zoho Sheets. They introduced race charts, which are really kind of cool. You can basically take any chart, drop it in there, and it will animate it. So it'll kind of, the columns will go up and down as, over a period of time. And this just saw, I'm not going to highlight these because they're kind of not major things, but throughout the rest of the year, they added 9 new Zoho Sheets functions, including import range, which was just a big one. They added pick lists, which is really kind of nicer than you see in Excel, because in Excel, you're using kind of a data range and you're pulling it in. I mean,
you're validating against some other column, whereas here you're actually just making pick list options.
Yeah, it's super nice. And then a whole bunch of Zoho Sheet print enhancements. That is an application that I think is actually one of best in class. I feel that way about Word as well, or their writer application, because but anyway, really, really good stuff to Zoho Sheets. Anyway, that brought us to March, which was quite a big month. We had a whole bunch going on in March.
And so the first one was one that we were a little sad about, and we've seen some movement on it since, but it was the end of life announcement for Zoho Motivator. Motivator was kind of an interesting little application. It was almost an extension of the CRM, where it really just took a live feed of CRM data and allowed you to, visualize it. And kind of the main use of it was for, a TV dashboard in the sales room, right? So you have different contests running, and it's animating them, and it's slinging it up to a TV, and you're showing people's profile pics. Susie's in first place and she's closed this many deals, but John's right behind her, with this many. So they've kind of been dicey around where exactly some of those dashboards are going to be showing up. But, recently they have kind of confirmed that they'll be moving to GameScope. So good news on that. They kind of kicked it down the curb a little bit with, the full end of life. And I think that was good. And, now they've kind of announced where that functionality is moving. So no harm, no foul at the end of the day, as long as all that rolls out before they, turn this one off.
I think, though, you're going to have to break GameScope out, right, into something, because the beauty of this is it was an standalone application. Everybody that we have deployed it for puts it up on TVs. Mm-hmm. In their bullpen, in their sales bullpen. It's up on a big TV. It's got real-time data, and you get that in GameScope. It'll be curious to see where we get. I did a bunch more kind of checking in, because this end of life got moved and moved and moved. It appears, though, that we are 9 days away. It's over. On December 31st, it is officially dead. So bye-bye Motivator. And then Zoho Forms added logic-based calculations. This was pretty cool. It gave us a lot of abilities we didn't quite have before, Tyler.
Yeah, and basically what this is doing is it's allowing you to do different math on a form based on a previous choice. So let's say, I'm shopping for apartments, and I say I want a 2-bedroom versus a 3-bedroom. Maybe we can calculate a different estimated rent amount, right, based on those 2 different pick list options on the form. So if you're saying each bedroom we assume is going to cost $800 per month, and I say I have a 2-bedroom, we'll, put that in as $1,600 rather than $2,400 if I choose 3 bedrooms. So it's kind of just the ability to add some additional logic that's actually being calculated on the fly when a user is filling out a form.
And then also in March, a little bit more sad news. We lost Motivator, and Zoho had to kill Zoholics. This was a sign of the time. They really did wait till the very, very, very last minute on this as to what they were going to do on it. There was a lot of internal bickering. No one really knew where things were at this point in time. I think people thought the lockdown was going to last for a few weeks maybe, and that was going to be it. But Zoholics was also held in Austin, and the city of Austin canceled South by Southwest, and, probably a good thing they did. And so anyway, here we are, still 9 months later, this is going on, but that happened. And as part of that, Zoho did something really good. They canceled that. The pandemic started heating up. Small businesses were having trouble. And, we kind of forgot about this, but they rolled out the Small Business Emergency Subscription Assistance Program. And basically they waived all the subscription fees, and they kept extending it. I think they did it all the way up to September 30th or something. Mm-hmm. It went out quite a while.
And this is one of many things. I mean, there's a couple more that we'll touch on here that Zoho kind of did throughout the year to try to make the situation better for people. And this kind of set the tone, and, all credit where it's due to Zoho on things like this. They really did give away a whole bunch of subscription seats. This wasn't something where they made a big stink about it and then they, comped it for 5 or 6 customers. It really was a lot of people benefiting from this, and a really great thing for them to do.
Well, and like you say, this was different. So, during the year, they came out with some products we're going to talk about, and they said, oh, by the way, these are going to help you work remotely, so they're free for 90 days, mm-hmm. right? And that's kind of nice. But at the same time, a lot of people say, oh, great, you're just trying to get new subscribers at the end of the day. But this was different. This was, you are an existing paying customer and we're just going to waive your subscription fees because we know things are hard. So big kudos, big kudos. And March just continued to roll along. And we got our very, very first new bundle, which was remotely, which, as we said, was free for most of the year. And remotely, gosh, what was in that? It basically was
most of the collaboration. You got the Cliq, the Zoho meeting. I think Connect was part of that bundle. Kind of all the different things that you would need to keep in touch with your team and, kind of simulate that office environment, remotely.
Yeah. I think, did they even throw Assist into there? They may have.
I think Assist was included in there as well.
Yeah. And then Zoho Desk got a much needed integration with inventory and subscriptions that year. As part of, we saw Desk get a lot more integrations through it went out as the year kind of rolled along. So, if you were in there, you could basically pull in when you're looking at a client, whatever's going on with them in inventory, whatever's going on with their subscriptions. Kind of nice new features there.
Yeah, and then kind of following that, knowing that people may need to be pausing subscriptions given, the situation with COVID, Zoho Subscriptions added a much needed feature to be able to pause and resume people's subscriptions. This was one that, it's kind of a long time coming for the application. Previously you'd have to either cancel or set a future start date or, kind of work around the missing functionality. But I think COVID kind of gave them the kick that they needed to roll that out officially.
Yeah, that was, what do we call it during the year? We thought that was a thing.
Yeah.
There's sometimes features are rolled out that we just kind of assumed existed. That was one, but that was a good one. And then Zoho Expense added Zoho Projects integration. You started to see Expense get more and more integrations throughout the year as well. But considering that Projects is a place where you might really want to track your expenses, this was a rather nice integration.
Yeah, it kind of ties directly into all your timekeeping that you can run in projects as well to get your real cost, for implementing a specific project.
Which brought us to April. And it was a little slow in April, but we did have a couple product updates.
Yeah, so the first one was, the vendor portal for Zoho Books. So, they've had a client portal for a while where a client can log in, they can see their sales orders or their invoices, they can make payments against those. And they basically rolled out that same type of functionality, but for the other side of the spectrum, right? Where a vendor can log in and see purchase orders and see bills that they might have open. It's kind of a nice bit of functionality there for people that are the heavier users of Zoho Books who may actually want to allow vendors that type of visibility.
Yeah, and the last one actually was for Zoho CRM, and it was some changes to the UI and the record details page. This was what they called the kind of the new look. This is kind of the precursor to a lot of cleanup we're seeing during the year to the overall UI, the interface, the GUI. Even just this week, if you notice, the settings page kind of got a whole new revamp, and a lot of buttons are changing, and all of this is kind of a precursor to some major changes rolling down the tracks, and we'll talk about those later on in the show. But this was
all good
stuff. A good cleanup. It is.
Yeah, and the things that they've been doing recently, they're kind of slowly trickling them out to accounts. We've seen updates to the list views of records, updates to the settings pages, and it's all significant improvement. Just to kind of break things out, I think one of the common critiques of Zoho is that, it's a lot of gray and white on the page, especially in the CRM. And these are all just giant steps towards kind of answering some of those criticisms.
Which took us into May. Now, I think the biggest news of the year was that I launched a Peloton group, #Zoho. Clearly is a big hit. I am still just the only member. So, all those Peloton users out there, #Zoho. I'll see you. I'll see you on the Peloton.
And then another kind of update rolling out for Zoho WorkDrive, which, as an aside, is just a great, document management application. But, they rolled out their True Sync for Windows, which basically allows you to access your WorkDrive documents and folders just natively from inside of your, Microsoft document management. That's just, on your actual PC. So great update there. I mean, we have some clients that just live in that on a day-to-day. So it's definitely a good one.
Yeah, and then Biggin officially launched 4 months after the soft launch here, and then we'll talk about this, but the integration started coming fast and furious. What we thought was just going to be, I think for so many of us, we looked at this application and we couldn't quite figure it out. Because you've got to really so there's a low end version, like the personal edition of Zoho CRM, and we thought that was it, but it starts to make sense as the year rolled on. And then Cliq added this remote work feature. This was basically Orwellian 1984. So if you haven't played with it, it's Zoho Cliq, which is like Slack. It's kind of your inter-office communication. You can have channels, you can have those kind of things. Well, because everybody was working remotely, they actually added a feature, which is kind of nice, where you can go in and you can check in and let people know when you're available and when you're not available. But it also had this little feature, which is turn on your camera. So there's no audio or anything, but your boss at any time could just check in and see, that you're sitting at your desk. Well, either that or get a mannequin or a hologram or something. But it was that was unique. But remote work, they continue to add features to that throughout the year.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a cool one. I think one of the advantages to it is that, when you're in a traditional office, it's more easy to see, oh, they look kind of available. They're sitting back in their chair, or, they're leaning forward, really working on something, or they're out grabbing coffee. But, with moving to remote work, you're just online or offline with the traditional chat tool. And so this was kind of Zoho trying to allow you to add some context. Maybe it's like, hey, I'm here, but I'm engaged in work, so don't message me unless it's super important. Or, I'm here and I'm just kind of hanging out. So, shoot me a message if you need me, kind of to contextualize people as they're working from home.
And that brought us into June. Man, Zoho Meetings got a major facelift. And I will tell you that this is one of the things. It is, they have really, really improved the overall look and feel. It didn't fix some of the key elements. We'll talk about that in our wish list. But boy, this was a nice facelift.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those applications similar to bookings that we would love to use. I mean, anyone who, works with us as a client, that, that booking system, getting the Zoom meetings, it is really core to how our engagements work. And we'd love to change over to meetings. It's got some great functionality. We're still just waiting on that waiting room and some recording improvements, which we'll dive into later.
Yeah. And then Zoho Forms, which we mentioned, is kind of getting all of these updates. This was a nice one, dynamic labels. So all this is a person fills out the form, first name Brett, last name Martin. And then when they go to the next one, it's going to say, Brett, what's your favorite sports team? Oh, my favorite sports team is the Dodgers. And then on the next one, it would say, oh, why do you like the Dodgers so much? So basically it would just change the labels with these dynamic responses. Very, very nice. It's, kind of customized. It's something that other form builders have had, but they put a lot of effort into forms. It's actually best in class at this point in time.
Yeah. I mean, we use it on a daily basis, pretty much. It's great.
And Tyler and I will disagree on this over and over again, but Zoho Writer 6.0 is released. I live in Zoho Writer. I love Zoho Writer. I like it better than Microsoft Word. I like it better in Google Docs. Anyway, just great application.
I'm a convert that I do like it more than Google Docs now. For some reason, I think it's just, back in my previous life as a, working in the chemistry field, I just put together so many documents in Word that I just have those habits, right? That, to format this way, I do exactly this. And things are just a little different in Writer. But, they have added just an absolutely awesome amount of functionality to it. And what we're finding a lot, I mean, talking about, application ecosystems, is just the way that Writer ties into people, and the way that Writer ties into the CRM, and the way that it ties into all these other applications, and even into Deluge, right? Where you can just, any application that could run Deluge, hypothetically, can create a Writer document. So it's just a super powerful thing to have just within the same system as the rest of your applications.
Yeah. And I kind of, it's funny. So I've been using Zoho Sheets was something I used for a very, very long time. And not Zoho Sheets, Google Sheets. And I was a huge Excel guy. But what I find now, as opposed to like what you were talking about with Microsoft Word, is I go back and I'm like, just the ribbon and trying to find things, if you've went away from it for a while. And I do love the interface in Writer 6. I love that left-hand toolbar that pops in, that gives you all the options. it's slick. It's a different UI, and it's one that I find I find I really like. All right, and let's keep going in June.
So kind of a little minor update for Zoho bookings. They basically are allowing you to color code, your booking pages to your brand colors. They used to all be this kind of purple, which I like purple, but if your company colors are red or green, you probably want to brand that accordingly. So look, kind of a minor update there, but definitely a nice one for customizing the booking experience.
Yeah, and then Sales IQ added the ability to have a chat link right in your email signature. So you could say chat with me, and they'd click on it. It would actually take them to an open chat conversation with you. Kind of nice if you're a customer service representative. And you, by the way, can set it up line offline. So I think it's actually it's a kind of dynamic saying whether you're online or offline on the chat with me kind of thing. It was very, very nice.
Full HTML.
Yeah. And then let's talk about July.
So yeah, July, we saw the update of the CRM new logo. This is kind of a long time coming. It's a story that we followed for a little while. So if you remember, if you're a longer time listener, back in August of 2019, they kind of put out big blog post and write up about their new methodology for logos, which is their logo-linism. So it's kind of making them a little bit simpler and more consistent across all the different applications. And in July is kind of where we started to see the big rollouts happen specifically to the CRM.
It was interesting too, because we went back and looked, and the logo-linism CRM logo was kind of an abstract representation of two hands shaking, like the old Zoho CRM. And when they changed it, it was kind of those double infinity twist circles that were kind of going,
Made a little more abstract. Maybe it was because of COVID, you can't shake hands. So they had to abstract it back a little bit.
That's what it was. I like that. But we're still waiting, by the way. I mean, Zoho Forms hasn't gotten a new logo. It does have one. I mean, all the way back in August, they released at least their initial concepts for all the logos. But these Forms, PageSense, Sales IQ, they do not have new logos yet.
I'm waiting to see if they'll ever redo the Zoho blocks, because once they have all these rolled out, I mean, even Zoho One has one of these logos. I mean, every single application has a logo that is going to be brand consistent, which is great, right? Because back in the day, you could look at the logo for Forms and look at the logo for CRM, and you wouldn't know that they're made by the same company, right? With a lot of these new logos, it's very clear. They're all, visually consistent. So it'd be interesting to see if they ever change the blocks. I vote yes, but it's not our decision to make.
Boy, I've had people tell me that they never ever even considered Zoho because of the logo, because they thought it was so amateurish, right? On the other hand, it is so unique and it sets them apart, right? And it's kind of there. And I think people realize that Zoho is the real deal. And, maybe it turned people off back in the day, but I tell you what, it would make sense to change it, but it's kind of iconic for them, I guess. I don't know. Maybe you take the blocks and logo-linize the blocks.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
What I mean?
You can keep the blocks or the essence of it, but it's just going to look, because it has that 3D look, right? And all the logos with logo-linism, they went to 2D, so we'll see.
That wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be bad. All right. And Cliq added availability reports. So part of the whole, remote work thing in Zoho Cliq, this now you could see when was a person available, when were they not available. So just because you have that ability to check in and say I'm here, and to click a button to say I'm on a 15-minute break, or to say I'm at lunch, or to say I'm working, all those kind of things. If you're not using it, it doesn't mean anything. So by running these reports, you basically can see, are employees using it? Are they making themselves available? And then start, enforcing whatever policies you wanted in your company. And moving on to more stuff in July.
Yes, they kind of rolled out some additional improvements for Zoho Expense around trip management. So it's kind of like an end-to-end way to expense out anything around a specific trip that you may have taken. Again, probably not seeing a lot of usage since July of this year, but one that'll be nice to have going forward.
Yeah, and then the CRM portal. So for those of you who aren't familiar, you go into CRM, you go into settings, you have a portal option. It's kind of limited, but can be kind of powerful. We actually rolled this out for a client, and one of the problems is that if the user doesn't create the record, the user couldn't edit the record.
Mhm.
So you're going to have an external user and you want them to see all of these deals, and you make them the owner of all the deals. So you get it all done, and then they go in and they can't do anything with that deal. So, but what that user could do is then clone the deal. They could edit that deal. So you'd have like 100 deals. You'd have to clone all those deals. Then you'd have to go back in the CRM and you'd have to clone the original older or delete all the original older versions. So then you just have the clone version, which now the person could edit. Well, now portal users can edit records created by other users. That was huge. I wish that had happened a couple of years ago. Would have saved would have saved a whole lot of time.
And hopefully a sign of things to come with some additional improvements to the CRM portal in 2021. It's still just a little bit limited. And, like we mentioned with the Catalyst Connect portal that rolled out in January, there's workarounds for it now, but it would be nice to see just a little bit more there with the CRM portal.
Yeah, you can. Right now, you're limited to kind of contacts and deals and then related lists associated with those, but you can't pull any account information in.
Mm-hmm.
There's just some odd things. Can't, it is like you say, limited, but boy, it could get there. But like I say, there are other options. All right. In August, we saw the release of 3 new products. So, Tyler, why don't you kick it off?
Yes, the first one that we saw was Zoho Team Inbox, which is kind of like a super, super, super lightweight. I don't even want to call it similar to Desk. It's not quite like Desk where emails are open and closed and have statuses, but it's a way to say, assigning an email to a person who's using it, they can then kind of work on it, respond to it, leave some comments in it. You can assign them to teams as well, right? So there's kind of some useful functionality in there, but as of now, it's, a super lightweight application.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much to it right now, but I think it'll get there. There are a couple companies out there that have nothing but that. It's not Desk. It's just when an email comes in, it goes into a folder, it gets routed there, and
Mhm.
you can see who responded. A little like Desk, like you say, not really like Desk. We'll see. And you want to take the next one?
Sure. And then our next application in August was Zoho Back to Work. I guess this was when the original lockdowns were starting to slow down or open back up, so they released this one. So Zoho Back to Work is a pretty interesting application in that it's actually all built inside of Zoho Creator, and they had released it. I think it's free until the end of the year, and then it's something like $2 per user after that. And basically, what it is, it's super well thought out. It's end to end, you now have people coming back into the office. Here's all the things you need to do, right? When they walk in, you got to fill out the temperature check form. When they start coming back, you need to fill out the who have you talked to, who have you seen in person form, right? All these various forms that you want to have to be, legally compliant, bringing people back into the office following COVID. And we've seen some of this functionality roll into Zoho People. It's almost like Back to Work was kind of the testing grounds or a way to deploy it for people who might not have Zoho People implemented. But it's one of those applications. They really crossed the T's, dotted the I's on, because it just had a ton of functionality in it.
Yeah, it's still out there. And I think it is $2. It's very, very cheap, but it does kind of take care of everything you'd want to do. And then Zoho Toolkit rolled out. Is this actually called Zoho Email Toolkit? I think it's just Zoho Toolkit.
I think it's just Zoho Toolkit.
Yeah, but it's the ultimate utility for email admins. I know you use this all the time. It allows you to check, DNS, DKIM, SPF. It basically does a lot of the checking you need for deliverability, correct?
Yeah, it's basically a quick way to check anything from where the name servers of this domain. Does it have SPFs? Does it have DKIM records? Right, all these various things. The way that I use it a lot of the times is, one of the things that we'll do for clients is, let's say we're going to roll out Zoho campaigns. Well, before you ever send an email, you need that SPF and DKIM, right, so that you can see good deliverability. And oftentimes, if you have like a web developer, or you have a team that manages that, you kind of lose track of where exactly your domain is managed. And so what I do is I use it to just pull that up and check, right? Where do I need to go to add these records? And it's, super easy to just pull it up and take a look there.
And then going through August some more, the integration train kept on rolling. Zoho Campaigns was integrated with Begin, and this would be the start of some cool stuff as they just kept basically integrating virtually every single Zoho application into Begin. And then you ever wonder if someone has read your Cliq message? Well, wonder no more, because Cliq introduced read receipts. Or is it read receipts? So Tyler and I have had a debate about this. Tyler, I'm not even going to tell you who says what, but I would like to know, is it a read receipt or a read receipt? Please give us your votes. Evidently, no one cares. So if come on, guys, get out there. Oh. All right. Coming in. All right. Well, so far there's only one person who has voted.
The deciding factor.
That's it. Time's up. Okay. Read receipt or read receipt. Well, I'm going to share the results. One person voted and they went with read. So I agree with that as well. It's I think I've always called it a read receipt, but for what it's worth, Tyler, I asked a couple people over at dinner the other night and they said it was a read receipt. So I don't know.
Because I always thought it's a past tense. Here's the receipt that I have read this, but you're saying here's the receipt as I read this.
I don't know.
No, it's like GIF or GIF, right? It's an eternal debate. So there's never going to be an answer.
Well, it's also one of the few words in the English language that has the present and past tense are spelt exactly the same and just pronounced differently. So it's kind of because anyway, if you send a message and Cliq, you now get a couple double check marks next to it if the person's actually read it. So now you can know that they truly are just ignoring you. And then you were pretty excited about Kanban views in CRM.
Yeah. So what they did, they always had Kanban views in the CRM, but they were just so visually plain, right? It was kind of these square boxes inside of gray columns, really thin little tiny gray lines separating the columns, no real color to it. And, they totally redid that system in the CRM where, now you have the placards, each column is color coded. There's still a little bit more functionality under the hood that we'd like to see, your ability to customize, but visually it's just much more intuitive. It looks a lot more like a HubSpot pipeline or a Pipedrive view. You're still waiting on the tasks. The one thing that they don't really have a great Kanban for is tasks in the CRM. The only available columns are what those tasks are related to. So here's your column of tasks for leads and contacts. Here's tasks for deals, right? Where you'd like to see them in a status view. But at least for managing a pipeline via Kanban, which is a big use case, these ones do a much better job than they used to.
Yeah, they do. And in the deal, it's great, right? Because in the deal, you're running the Kanban by stages, and that's perfect. But I'd love for you to be able to say, "Hey, here's the status of my task," and if they could just sort those tasks by statuses. I think the reason that it isn't happening is, and I think they're breaking this up, is that both meetings, calls, and tasks are all kind of lumped together. Mm-hmm. And so it's a little more difficult to do that. So you almost need to break the whole tasking engine out of meetings and calls. And then I think you can make that happen. And who knows if we'll see that. And then the marketplace extension passed over 1,000 extensions. This was kind of a big deal. If you think about where it was back in October prior to the release of Catalyst, and what's the server?
It's Sigma.
Sigma. Prior to the release of Catalyst and Sigma, the development environment and the hosting environment and all that, I don't know, 100 maybe? Not
a decent amount, but you really just saw an exponential growth, right? It just took off over the course of this year.
Yeah, it was good stuff. So
I mean, some of their examples too, it's, previously, I remember they were talking about this at the conference where, an extension that might have taken, 2,000 lines of code to deploy, they've streamlined down to a couple hundred, right? So just the investment cost of building out a plugin is so much lower. And it's interesting in the marketplace, you can see when they're powered by Sigma or Catalyst, it actually highlights it on the right-hand side. And I swear it's almost every single one I see now It's all just through those platforms. It's been a huge success from Zoho in rolling those out.
Yeah, and you're starting to see most of the really good applications were by Zoho themselves. But now you're seeing some really good stuff, not only by third-party developers, but by other companies writing their own extension for Zoho,
Mm-hmm.
which is just a good thing to see. And August wasn't done. It was a pretty big month. They launched a website for their recruiter called Full On Recruiter. I think it's like fullonrecruiter.com. Um, and it had a lot of hope. And, as we're going through and we're doing this, we said, oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was great. We went back and we looked at it, and it hadn't really been getting any updates. It got a bunch in August, I think, and one in November, but hopefully they restart the project, because I think it had the potential to be a great hub for recruiters to come talk about things, and they were doing some great stuff with it. So hopefully that keeps going.
Yeah, and it was more than just, kind of silly blog posts for SEO. I mean, they had a lot of functionality in there, and they were bringing in recruiting experts for webinars, and they had a little podcast running. Really cool project, and we'd love to see them spin that back up, because I think I'd love to see them do that for more applications. I mean, make one for the CRM, make one for Zoho Books, and host some accountants on there. I mean, there's a lot of potential for that style of engagement, and yeah, I would like to see them spin this back up a little bit.
Yeah, and Zoho Writer got a true offline mode, which was just great for me since I love the application. So you really can just take it offline, write everything, and as soon as you come online, it puts it back up to the cloud. Very similar to what you've had with Google Docs for a while, but they started getting offline mode in all of their Office applications, kind of bringing them on, bringing parity with the rest of the things that are out there. All righty, and that brings us to September.
Yeah, so this was where we saw kind of the actualization of Zoho Sign and Zoho Finance. So they rolled out an integration with Sign and Finance a little while back. And, the big kind of special sauce of it is, hey, you can actually have someone sign an invoice or sign an estimate to approve it rather than just click the approval button. But the big downside when they originally rolled it out is that your client had to log into the client portal in order to be able to sign it. So, one of the best things about Zoho Books is that when you send that estimate, it's all just digital from their email. They click it, they click accept, or they click decline. And, what they did here in September is basically add Zoho Sign into that workflow so that I don't need to go to the portal. Just from the link in my email, I can pull up the estimate, confirm some info about myself, and then sign it, which is super, super powerful.
Yeah. And then to me, the biggest update for Begin, kind of made Begin real, was two-way synchronization between Zoho CRM. So now, and by the way, we did this, and there were a few issues. The Begin team was all over it. They really, really were engaged, and we worked with them back and forth, and they kind of really dialed in this synchronization now. So there are a couple things around it that, you do need to make sure you got all your deal stages ahead of time. But the great thing is you actually end up with full synchronization, all your tasks, all your deals, all your contacts, all your accounts, everything in Begin. So why would you want that? Well, maybe you don't want sales guys to have the whole CRM. Maybe you don't feel like you need to lock down the CRM to, with all these profiles. And for sales guys, you want just this dead focus on just kind of your standard drag and drop pipeline type of CRM. And the mobile application for Begin is beautiful and simple. So you actually, because Begin is also a part of Zoho One, you could have your full-blown CRM. But you also maybe give your field guys, your field sales, your outside sales, whatever, just kind of this little slim down Begin. They update their deals. It goes into the big CRM. Anyway, I was really, really happy with that integration.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things. I mean, sometimes working from what you have, kind of, we mentioned it a little earlier, is that critique of the CRM, that sometimes the UI just isn't quite on par with some of these other platforms. And redoing what you currently have is sometimes a lot harder than building something new. And I think that's kind of where they went with Begin, where it's, let's start from scratch, let's redo the UI, let's keep it simple. And then look, you could always tie it in to, the mothership, right? Zoho CRM later with an integration like this.
Yeah. And then Cliq went ahead and added widgets.
Which is super nice. I mean, and especially rolling now with some of the new UI updates they rolled out for Cliq, where widgets are kind of broken out in their own little section. Basically what a widget is just the ability to plug in, either a web page or, a little referenced application just into Cliq as a little tab in there. So super valuable to have. I mean, just because, we've seen them roll this out with Writer, at least kind of as a proof of concept, but it's just that ability to pull in anything you're working on directly into your collaboration tool and just, chat while you're working on documents. And it's all very seamless.
And then rounding out September, we saw a new product bundle. This was Workplace, which was basically Microsoft Office, Google Workspace, but kind of on steroids. So not only do you get in the Workplace bundle, you get mail and you get all of the Office applications. So Writer and Show, which is their presentation software, and Sheets, which is Excel, and what am I missing here? All of them. You basically get all of the Workplace apps, but then they threw in just like meetings and
Work Drive
and Cliq
and
so you ended up with basically Slack and Zoom and all of these other applications. It was fantastic. So really, and I think it's like $7 per user per month, and
that's
so
not bad at all.
now really really hard to beat. And so that was a nice bundle. I think it was, I thought it had already existed, but I think they just kind of beefed it all up prior to that.
Yeah, and then kind of one of the last updates here for September, Zoho Mail got the functionality to be used as an IMAP client. So basically an IMAP client is just a way to use a different client for your mail than where it's actually hosted in, a fairly seamless manner. Now, we've bumped into a couple little nitty-gritty issues with it and the way that it interacts with Gmail. It seems like Google and Zoho have some type of beef, and there's just always these little issues with some of their integrations. But overall, super nice just to be able to, cast your email into Zoho Mail and access some of the collaboration features that are kind of native in the client.
Yeah, I had a long conversation just the other day with someone about using it, and all those little widgets that they have off to the side. I mean, basically, you're sitting here looking at if I'm looking at an email from Tyler, he's a client. I can click and see all of his invoices, all of his projects, every single thing that he's got going on across all the various. So it nicely pulls them all in. Super, super nice integration. And that took us into October, where we saw the release of Zoho CRM Blueprint 3.0. What did you think of it?
So, a handful of things that they released here with 3.0. So you had looping transitions, meaning I can have a button in my blueprint that doesn't actually change the stage, but just might, run a function or send a notification or, require that someone add a note if they hit that point. Some of the things that they've announced that are going to come out that haven't quite released yet are things like parallel transitions and, just some extra beef in that blueprint engine. I mean, we find ourselves using it more and more nowadays, even for relatively simple processes, just because it makes it so easy. You just click the button, it pulls up a form, anything you need to fill in, it runs any functions that you need to run, and just moves you right through a process easily.
And then Zoho Mail Admin Console got a much needed overhaul. This is not something that really anybody ever sees, but if you go mailadmin.zoho.com, you basically were taken to an interface that was developed in 1927. And it got a huge it basically got completely modernized. And really, not that the other one, even though the other one, we make fun of it, even though the other one was old, it's kind of like a Craigslist, right? It's still highly functional. It was always highly functional. It just kind of got modernized and got a nice new facelift, and it was much needed. And then to keep it going, Zoho Project 7. We didn't talk about this with Writer 6.0, but it appears that Zoho internally has some versioning on their software that we never know about. So Zoho Project 7 was released, and I know we as a team have worked in it heavily, and we like the changes.
Yeah, it was kind of the last tipping point for us in actually moving everything over to projects. We used to use Zoho Connect and some of their Kanban boards and task engines there. Zoho projects, little things, they rolled out dark mode, kind of gave it a once over, improved some of the UI. A lot of the big thing about it is that, your views around tasks between all your different projects are a lot smoother. They kind of reorganize the UI to encourage you to work from those views a little bit more than each individual project. It's been a pretty cool process. I mean, they rolled it out for partners kind of in early access, and there's a ton of feedback on it, which they're super responsive to. And now they've kind of started rolling it out for everyone. And I think it's a huge improvement, especially if you're used to tools like, maybe Asana or Todoist. I think Zoho Project 7 makes it a lot easier to use it for smaller projects, where previously it really was only a great tool if you had, 30 or 40 action items in a template. Now it's a lot more user-friendly for if you've got 10 projects rather than 2, and each one has a sprinkling of tasks.
Yeah, it's the overall layout, feature functionality. It's nice. And that brings us to a brand new font from Zoho called Puvi. This is rolled out. If you're watching the video on this, we've kind of got what the new typeface looks like. I'm trying to figure out if I've seen it roll out or not, Tyler. I mean, it's kind of hard if you read the release. I can't figure out if this is going to be the new typeface on their website or where else. This is going to be the typeface that is in every single application, which is kind of what I thought it was going to be. But I think this is rolling out, and we'll kind of see, I guess we'll see it in applications. Is that what you think?
Yeah, I think their plan is to move a lot of the applications over to this typeface over time. And then once they have kind of rolled it out internally, they'll release it out to the public for anyone else to use. We'll have to get their permission. I like it. I'd like to use it in our content because I think it's a pretty nice font. It's got our designer Tavin stamp of approval, so that's good enough for me.
Yeah, it's nice. And then rounding out October, this was a big one. The CRM added a long requested feature, many to many record associations. That's supposed to be between records in the same module. I don't know. This was something we just needed for a long time.
Yeah, basically this is where maybe you wanted to say, this contact is related to this group of contacts, or all these different contacts are kind of just in a bundle together. You're basically able to do these many-to-many relationships. Now, we found a lot of the times, I don't often use many-to-many lookup fields. I'll oftentimes build a linking table or a linking module just to add a little bit more color to it, right? So if you think about a family, right? Let's say, you could say, here's the family in this field, and it's, John, Susie, and Alex, right? But they're just all in one field, versus if you build out a linking module or something a little bit more custom, you could say, John is related to Susie because she's his wife, and Susie is related to John because she's his husband, and this is the kid, and this is, the grandparents, right? So you're able to contextualize it a little more, but definitely nice to have for if you just need those kind of raw associative data.
Yep. And then Zoho People introduced Office Readiness. So this was the back to work standalone application, the Zoho release. And they basically took it and they put it into Zoho People, because if you had Zoho People, it was the perfect place for it to be. So rather than have kind of a standalone creator application, which was back to work, for those companies using Zoho People, just kind of put it in there. A bunch of forms that people had to sign and checklists and things like that you needed. And really well done. We've really been diving into People lately. It seems like we've got a whole lot of People implementations that we're doing. I think I find it to be just a great application. So, and this is a nice addition to it.
Yeah, there's a lot to it. I think sometimes it scares you off at first glance just because there's so much functionality under the hood. I mean, every time you open up one of those side tabs, there's another group of tabs, and you go into that one, it's another group of tabs, right? Just because there's so many settings that you have to get right in Zoho People. But once you have it dialed in, I mean, it's a best-in-class HR management tool, without a doubt.
I am dying. Payroll cannot come to the United States soon enough. I'll leave ADP, because then it's that the only thing that kind of holds it back is payroll, right? Payroll's in India right now. It's a big deal. So I'll probably have to buy a company over here for the payroll part, but they're planning on rolling it out. So that's kind of the last thing that People needs. In November, noviembre. Zoho's version of Grammarly, which is called Zia and Zoho Writer, now supports Spanish. We had an entire show titled Mucho Gusto Zia. And anyway, it's nice. If you use Zoho Writer, we talk about this all the time. Grammarly is kind of default. When they first put this in, I was a little upset because I'm an avid Grammarly user. If you don't know what it is, it basically not only checks your spelling, but your grammar in real time. And man, oh man, even though you think you're a good writer, you find out, oh, wow, I forgot. Yeah, probably should put some prepositions in front of this phrase and all sorts of other things. But anyway, now they support Spanish. And since my Spanish is middling at best, I can't tell you if it's any good, but I bet it is.
And then next, they rolled out an integration for Zoho Forms and Begin. This one's kind of a no-brainer. You've got a contact us form. It's got to go somewhere. So if you're using Begin, you can just route that in as a lead or as a contact. Of course, now you could tie this in, to the CRM and then sync it over. But this is a way to basically pop it directly into Begin.
Yeah, and then Motivator is dead. Long live GameScope, like Tyler said earlier. So basically, GameScope was added into Zoho Desks. So we're speculating this is how it's all going to go, and it'll be kind of curious what this ends up looking like at the end of the day. But basically, if you use GameScope inside of CRM, you know what it is in Desk. It's just different metrics that you're measuring, and it does those in real time, and you can have leaderboards.
Yep. And I've actually seen them start to tease the TV views in GameScope. So that they're going to do it. It's just a matter of when they'll get rolled out. But I know that that's on their hit list for it. It's giving you that kind of rotating leaderboard that's kind of pre-designed to be cast up onto a TV. So we're excited for that one.
And the last new product of the year was Transmail. And this is an interesting application. The crazy part about this is that Zoho actually talked about this publicly in July of 2018. And on episode 1 of the CRM Zen Show, we talked about Transmail. It was one of our topics. So explain this a little bit. These are transactional emails. So responses to invoices and other kind of things. But what they've done is they put this out as kind of a public API service, so any application can use it.
Yeah, in essence, so you basically, when you're sending emails to contacts in your CRM, they're bucketed into either transactional or marketing, right? And when you're sending a marketing email, that's where you got to have your opt out. You got to have your address at the bottom of the page, right? You got to, hit certain bounce rates, acceptability. When you get to transactional emails, this is something where, hey, you just subscribed. Here's 3 emails about how to use the product, right? Or, hey, we just won this deal. Here's a series of emails about booking with the right people to help you get started, right? So these aren't marketing emails, even if you might dress them up, and kind of design them and make them look like a marketing email. They're really about a transaction that's happened. And Transmail for a long time has been Zoho's platform for sending emails. So if you've gone in and you've set up an SPF for the CRM, for example, you'll know that it's transmail.net that's actually used as that URL. And basically what they're doing with releasing this as a product is allowing us to basically make calls into Transmail to send emails. And I mean, this has the potential to be so valuable in the Zoho suite. I mean, just the amount of things that we have running in Deluge all the time and the ability to basically, ping out an email just via Deluge. And there's some ways to do that now, but to actually have it come from your proper mail server is going to be a huge jump forward.
All right. And this, we're in December. It's really, really been a slow month. Last week, we just had a couple, so there's just not a lot to talk about here. But couple big ones that we thought were really worth mentioning that did happen this month. And Zoho Forms allowing co-editors was a big one.
Yeah, so for the longest time in Zoho Forms, only the owner of a form could make any edits to it. So if you needed to change a pick list value and add a new one, right, you actually had to get the owner of the form to do that. Now they've allowed co-editors, so it's not fully the same as being the owner. So you can't update like the integration settings or some of the rules around it, but you can go in and edit the theme and you can edit the form content, right? And you kind of tweak it that way. So it's a big step. I mean, I'd love to see them kind of round it out and make similar to analytics, like an organization admin, right? Where certain users can have those ownership rights over all the forms. But without a doubt, this is a step in the right direction and one that'll save people a lot of headache in terms of having to route everything through one person for editing all the forms.
Yeah, and then Zoho Recruit added a chat bot, which I think would normally be not of any significance, except it's its own chatbot builder. And it's for the recruitment portal. And we kind of talked about this, I don't know, a couple of shows ago. This is interesting. And I'm kind of hoping they go somewhere with this because Zobots are great, but man, they're a pain in the butt to build. And this is kind of a WYSIWYG drag and drop, build your own little chatbot kind of thing. Definitely not nearly as powerful, but I think it could be.
And they built this on top of the Zia engine. So a couple of the things that, they weren't really big news because we've not seen a lot of people really adopt them and start to use them, but they've been building out Zia's recommendation engine kind of throughout the year, right? Of you feed it a couple parameters and it shows you stuff that seems to make sense based on those parameters. And this one that they've built in Recruit is pretty cool in the sense that, let's say I'm on your careers page, it can say, hey, want to upload your resume and I'll tell you what you'd be a good fit for, right? And you just literally give it your PDF. It does its OCR on it like it can do in Recruit as of now. And then it basically matches you and says, hey, I see on your resume, you're really good at Python. Well, we've got 2 job openings where that's a valuable skill, right? So it's super slick. And, if you have a lot of job openings up, it's a great tool for increasing, candidates finding the right application.
All right. And that rounded out the year. But before we move on to the Zenmys, at the end of every year, we kind of do a wish list and we compare how our wish list did from the previous year to this year. And Tyler, on Santa's wish list, evidently we were on the naughty list because we had 0 wishes granted, 2 wishes getting closer and 12 wishes were denied. So if you looked at our 2019 wish list, if you go back and you look at that show, it's easy to find. It'll be the last show in December in 2019. We wanted them to fix the following applications: Marketing Hub, bookings, meetings, and calendar. None of that occurred. Things got better, but not to the point where we could actually recommend them and saying these are great. And we really wanted to see deploy a centralized tasking engine. We kind of got something like that in Connect, but it's not, it'd
Not
be
quite full
nice.
featured.
Yeah, you really want all your tasks from all the different applications, whether it's in Mail or Desk or wherever. It'd be nice just to have them all collated into one nice place. We didn't get that. Now, on the almost CRM layout customization, which was discussed back in April of 2019, we can't talk about it, but we're putting it on the almost because let's just
We know
say
they're working on that still.
we know they're working on it and we've seen it. So it's around the corner. And then the launch of an LMS platform. Zoho they have a beta of Learn. I think that's public knowledge. Hopefully it is.
It's early access right
it's
now.
early access. There are some other things we can't talk about, but it appears there's a couple competing platforms for LMS going on and a couple ways that may go. But I think that is literally Q1. We're going to have something on an LMS side of things. No doubt about it. Tyler, you wanted lookup tables and Zoho Flow, denied.
Yeah, and we've worked around that with custom functions, but it's kind of from Zapier. It's just easier for maybe someone who doesn't do any programming, right? Where I can say if I get CA or California or a misspelling of California, then call it California, right? It's just a way to consolidate data, but you do it with a function, but it's not quite too user-friendly yet.
Yeah, and it looks like we had 3 wishes getting closer because actually syncing to analytics happened, didn't it? From subforms?
Not yet.
No.
Not yet,
Okay.
but it's getting closer and closer.
Okay.
That's one that we'd love to see from the CRM. We're also still unfortunately waiting on being able to pull those CRM subforms into email templates or have a workflow trigger when a new subform line is added. And we've worked around the workflow trigger a little bit. So if you have like a dollar value in your subform, we can run a update when the total is updated. So if you add a new line that updates the total, you're good to go. But if you're just storing contacts or something like that in a subform, it's still unfortunately a no-go.
That's a crazy one because subforms are so handy, and you can report on them now.
Yeah, they have made a ton of updates to them.
They have.
They're much better to work with than Deluge, and I know that they're working on these things, and they've kind of rebuilt the data structure of them to make it possible. So I'd expect they'll be flowing through the pipeline, but just not this year.
And then you wanted filtered lookup films in the CRM. No, 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 you didn't.
Yeah, it would just be great. I mean, just, maybe if you had an industry field in a deal and you were going to link it to an account, only show accounts in that industry or in a certain layout, right? Not yet.
Nope. And
Hopefully.
unified time tracking. Now, this is a must. This is something just got to happen. There's time tracking. There's different. We've got to figure out a way to get this to pull it all into books. Actually, it's got to synchronize across the board. Time tracking's got to go into project. It's got to go into books. It's got to be great if it could go to CRM, all the different places you might want it. This kind of goes right up there to me with unified tasking and a tasking engine. I think these are two things I'd love to see them do.
And then last but not least, this is one that still can be a thorn in our side. Basically inside of Zoho Books and Zoho Inventory, one of the great pieces of functionality is that you can, actually track your inventory for any items based on orders, based on packages and invoices. But the problem is, once I have all my SKUs in there, let's say I've been running Zoho Books for a year, and I say, you know what? Let's roll out Zoho Inventory. I want to be more on top of it with inventory management. My company's growing and it's time to clear out those processes. Well, any of those items that are in your system that have a transaction associated with them cannot be activated for inventory tracking. Now, I'm not an accountant. I would assume it's because of how you're supposed to account for opening stock on these specific products, but I've got to imagine there's some way that can be turned on, because it can be a real challenge, right? I mean, especially if you've got, let's say, recurring invoices where you need to bill for these items for the next year, then you really can't turn that item off and switch to a new one until all of those billings are completed. So it's one that doesn't come up super often, but when it does, it's a real challenge for people.
All right, that brings us to our 2021 wish list, which we can get through much quicker because a lot of this is the stuff that we pulled in that we didn't get. We're going to be very good this year, Zoho. I promise you. Marketing Hub is an interesting one. We've talked about it before. Either fix it or just, take the few remaining features that aren't in campaigns that exist in Marketing Hub and put them in there and just call it one application, because there's really no reason for both of them to exist. Bookings, we've talked about it. Great application. They just need to work on the calendaring side of it so that it actually properly writes to people's calendars. Other than that, I can't think of anything else that would kill it.
Well, the Zoom integration is still Zapier, but it has a great integration with Zoho Meetings.
Well, yeah. So if you fix Meetings, which only has two things that are missing, or three, I guess, which is there's no waiting room. So if you've ever tried to join a Zoho meeting and the person hasn't started it yet, says, sorry, the meeting's not started. And you just have to keep refreshing that URL, waiting for the person to start, then saying, as soon as the meeting starts, you'll be put into it. I know that's going to happen. The recording engine, which is the same thing as killing showtime, is abysmal, and it has to be fixed. And it's not so important necessarily in meetings, although you do want to record meetings, but Zoho Meetings is also their webinar software. And when you do a webinar, you'll want a high quality recording. So fix that, and we're behind it. And then the calendaring also, so that it's kind of the same thing you got with bookings, is you need to get those meetings properly added to a calendar. Showtime, which is their training application. Again, that's just got a recording issue. And then the calendar just needs to be updated. It's dated. It's not that functional. It's got some issues. So, this list is getting smaller. And just if we could just see, I mean, these are great applications with just minor little things that kind of prevent us from recommending them. So Zoho, please fix those for us. All right. And then again, the tasking engine, we talked about the full launch of the Canvas view for records, the launch of the LMS, the sub forms, filter lookups, basically everything we didn't get last year, we'd like to see again in 2020. And then some additional things.
Yeah, so these are kind of around Zoho One. One of the biggest trends that we saw in 2020 is really everyone is going for Zoho One. It's just an insane value. And once people enter with, the gateway drug CRM, and, we start to talk about how we use some of the other apps and how people are using them, everyone just gets on board. But, a couple of the little things that it would be great to see them polish up is, more standardization in the interface for these applications. kind of similar to how we're talking about the logos, where, you know, it's going to be nice when all the logos are designed the same, so if they all look like they're made by the same people. Well, one of the challenges with Zoho One is that, let's say you get really good at navigating the CRM settings. Well, if you go to recruit, you'll be great because they look about the same. You go to campaigns, totally different, right? You go to Zoho People, totally different, right? So we're kind of hoping that they'll be working on consolidating some of those interfaces, especially around the settings and the different launchers. And then last but not least is kind of a unified Zoho One dashboard. And, you know, you can put together reporting dashboards and analytics that pull from all the different applications. What I'd really love to see is, you know, kind of like how you have in the CRM, where I can pull a custom view of my tasks and I can pull a chart. You know, I'd love to see them roll that out for Zoho One, where I could have, here's my CRM tasks, here's my desk tickets, you know, and these are dynamic lists, clicking through to those applications would really just take it to the next level, I think, and make Zoho One that true operating system.
Yes, I think that's going to happen too. There's inklings of that.
We've got good feelings about some of these things in the upcoming year.
I got some good feelings. All right, Tyler, drum roll, please. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, the first annual Zenmy Awards. So Tyler and I have had some fun with this. So basically, we think that the product managers for Zoho do a tremendous job, and they're out there, and we kind of wanted to put it out to you guys in the audience. We got a tremendous response as to what you guys thought the best apps were in certain categories. And we got some surprises here. So not this one, though. The best sales and marketing application. The nominees were CRM, Campaigns, Motivator, Sales Inbox, Social, Sign, PaidSense, and Sales IQ. And with 73.91% of the vote, the winner was Zoho CRM.
Yeah, no surprise here with this kind of being, you know, like we say, the gateway drug into Zoho and one of the most widely used applications. I mean, year after year, it just gets more and more functionality added and just continues to improve. It's definitely a best-in-class option for your CRM.
Yes, and then on their best human resources application side, again, it's People, Workerly, and Recruit. And this is not going to be a surprise either. With 81.25% of the vote, Zoho People gets the best HR application. And it's a really, really good application. Although I will say Workerly is good, Recruit's getting there. So from an ATS perspective, it's good. All right, now this one I think maybe a little bit of a surprise, but this was the tightest one we had. So best custom solution application, Flow, Creator, Orchestly, Analytics, Sigma, and Catalyst, with winning with only 30% of the vote. So you can see how split this was. Zoho Analytics. Got to give some honorable mention to Flow, Creator, and Catalyst. All those got some nice.
Yeah, if I was
kudos.
a betting man, I would have put money on Creator for this one. But I mean, my bias, I love Zoho Analytics. There's just very little that you can't do in here, and it's kind of the exclamation point on Zoho's products as a whole, right? Is that you've got all these things running in all these various applications, and then you're just able to sync all that data into one place and, you know, report on it as you'd like.
Yeah, I thought Creator was a slam dunk for this one, but this one was just all over the map on the vote. So pretty interesting. All right, then we're going to move on to our best Office Suite application. These are Sheet, Show, Writer, Docs, and Mail. And man, I love this one. Coming in, actually, oh man, we had a late minute vote. We've got to change this. It's not Docs, actually. I take it back. That would be a Work Drive. We actually now have a tie. We did not turn off the voting. With 29.41% and 29.41% with the same amount of votes, we have Writer and Work Drive. So we're gonna have to give 2 awards for this one. Anyway, so I tell you what, Writer deserves it. So many improvements this year, and Work Drive deserves it too. So much was done for Work Drive. It's just really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, across the board, it's one of those applications that they kind of made the change from updating Docs to updating Work Drive probably about a year and a half ago, give or take. Would that be? And really, since then, it's just been you know, consistent slew of great improvements to the product.
And then moving on to our best collaboration application. We had sprints, meetings, Showtime, Connect, projects, Cliq, Vault, and bookings, eking it out with 54.55% of the vote. The Zenmy goes to Cliq. Again, deserving. Great job, team. I mean, man, you talk about the improvements to this app over the year. It was insane.
Yeah, just the amount of functionality. I mean, they plugged in what voice over IP, widgets, remote work, improved ability to share files. Their code snippet tool is just fantastic. I mean, it's just we're heavily biased on this one. We live in Cliq on a day to day. I mean, it's our primary tool internally for communicating. So a little bit of bias, I will admit. I was happy to see this one win, but absolutely a great application.
And then best finance application, there's going to be no surprise on this one at all. Basically books, payroll, inventory, checkout, commerce, expense, and subscriptions. It wasn't even close. 84.21% of the vote. Zoho Books kind of crushed it. I oftentimes get asked, should I move from QuickBooks to Zoho Books? What am I losing? I honestly don't think you're losing much at all, if anything. It's a rock solid application. I run 3 businesses on it. We have all kinds of clients. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's really the only time that you wouldn't want to switch. There's just specific industries where QuickBooks might have a vertical solution that's just great for you. But even recently, I was working with one of our clients in QuickBooks, and the process for going from estimate to sales order to invoice and all the conversion and digital acceptance, I mean, it is outright better in Zoho Books than it is in QuickBooks. I mean, it's super elegant, super easy. And again, ties right into the CRM or any of these other applications where you're going to be doing any billing.
All right. Best new application of the year. This was a hard fought battle. Biggin, Transmail, Lens, Team Inbox, eking it out with 27.27% of the vote. This was really split. Biggin, congratulations, Biggin. This is the baby Yoda of Zoho right here. This is the Grogu of Zoho. Anyways, you know what? With everything they did this year and all of the little integrations and the way it really did grow up. So congratulations to Biggin. That was a hard-fought battle there among the members of the Academy, I gotta say. So, all right, bringing us to our favorite telephony integration. This one was kind of a wide open, fill in your own blanks. We had a few and then fill it in. So I want to kind of talk about this from an honorable mention point of view here. So we had a lot of write-ins from Bria 5, Simply, bunch of cloud calls and some air calls. So, those were pretty good ones. We'll have to include those on the ballot next year. And actually kind of the write-ins gathered 36.84% of the vote. We had put out there Ring Central, Jive, Kixie, and Twilio. And at the end of the day, coming in and well-deserved was Twilio. This is a very, very versatile application, and I think it's only going to get better over time. And it happens to be what Zoho actually bases their telephony application on.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the, Pandora's box with telephony, right? You got to do a little bit more setup up front, right? It's not going to give you the easy soft phone and kind of some of the nice to haves that something like Ring Central will, but you're able to just build out really any workflow that you need around voice over IP using Twilio. If you want a plug and play option, Ring Central is always great, but for some of those custom builds that might integrate, SMS and some of these other tools, Twilio is a great option.
Yeah, and then coming now to our favorite marketplace application. This was strictly a write-in. We didn't give anyone any choices. Slack got some votes, Eventbrite, WorkDrive, but in the end, the winner was the Zoho Unified Client Portal from Catalyst Connect. And we talked about this earlier. It was released in January. And if you want to present virtually any data that resides inside of most of the CRM modules. Let your clients see it, let them edit it, let them respond. This is really the way to go. Great application. We've done so much work with this.
Yeah, and we even use this one internally. I wonder if this vote might have been a little biased by some of our clients in the fact that they they
They've
use
used
this
it
every day.
Yeah, either that or the ballot box was stuffed because it wasn't even close. So I don't know. I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you, John Mark. I don't know. You paid some people. Cliq farms across the world were mobilized. All right, and that brings us to our best Zoho application. Basically, this was every single Zoho application was eligible for this. And again, not even close. Look, this is the linchpin of all the applications, and basically CRM crushed it with 69.57% of the vote. Everything else was split all over the place, but it's kind of well deserved. So congratulations to Zoho and the CRM, at least the CRM team.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of no surprise on our end. What we generally see is, you'll have clients using a variety of different Zoho apps, but they're all using CRM because it really is the place that a lot of these different functionalities can all kind of be married together and drive your business.
And with that, the first annual Zenmys has come to a close. So I want to thank everybody for joining us today. We actually managed to bring this in about an hour and 15 minutes, Tyler.
A little quicker than we expected. We didn't know how long it was going to take us to get through all the news. So we trend between rambling and going too quick. So I think we might have found the sweet spot this time around.
I think this was it. It was some quick rambling is what it was. Anyway, if you want to reach us, just head over to Zenatta.com or crmzen.com. You can find contact forms there and just go ahead and drop us a line.
And on the websites is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to all the stories we discussed today. As always, you can follow us on your favorite social media platforms and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app, as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.
Thanks so much, everybody.